Hello again, my name is Marvin Kilborn. I'm a retired public school teacher. This video is going to be about teacher longevity, or basically how long do teachers survive within the public education system. Imagine this. Imagine you're a young person just starting out and there's a job you want to do. Let's say it's your dream job, something you've always wanted to do. And this job's going to require you to go to college, and it's going to take somewhere between 4 to 6 years to be qualified, trained to do this job. And you do that, you spend all those years and all this money to get this education, and then you find your first job. And you're excited about it. You're young, you're just starting out. And you find out pretty quick that this job is truly overwhelming. I mean, you're going to be putting in tons and tons of hours for very little pay, for very little money. Your leadership can't really be called leadership because this particular profession has some of the worst administration or leadership that you can find. You're going to be basically on your own. You're going to be required to survive and make it basically all on your own with little to no support from anybody. You're not going to get much help. You end up realizing you're going to be working from the second you walk into that job to the second you leave. You get basically no breaks whatsoever. You're working nonstop. You're taking work home with you almost if not every single night. And since it's your first year on the job, you're going to be working over the weekends too. After a little bit of time, you realize you're miserable. You're just working your ass off to try to survive. You're not getting any help. Your leadership sucks, and you're miserable. You're just not happy. You're tired all the time. You dread going to work. Crying might even become a part of your daily ritual. Now, I got to admit, I'm a pretty strong guy, and I'm a retired military guy, so I'm no wimp. But even myself, in some of the districts I worked for, some of the idiots that I had to work for, I got pretty close to tears on a number of occasions myself. This job really, really sucks. Now, you've gone to school for 4 to 6 years to do this job. You're disrespected by the people you're trying to help, and in this case, you're even disrespected by a lot of the parents of the people you're trying to help. After a while, you realize, man, this job sucks, and you quit before the first year is over. That is public education in a nutshell. The statistics on teacher longevity in public education are not pretty. 1 out of 3 brand new teachers, first-time teachers, quit during the first or at the end of the first year. 2 out of 5, a full 40% of new teachers quit within the first 3 years. And these numbers vary a little bit depending on what study you look at, but basically about half of all teachers quit before the first 5 years are over. So for a job that's required you to go to college from anywhere from 4 to 6 years and take all these certification tests and spend all this money, we're losing teachers almost as quickly as we can create them. It's ridiculous. Okay? Now here in Texas, the average number of years of experience of a teacher is only 11. Now imagine teaching as a profession that you should think that you could teach or do this job for about 30 years and then retire. So if our average years of experience is only 11 in a career that should last 30, that tells you that the teaching profession is bottom heavy in teachers that have far less or at least less than 10 years of experience. Not pretty. And nobody's doing anything about it. Administrators suck. School boards suck. The Department of Education sucks. Almost every aspect of this profession, except for the teacher himself, is pathetic and we need a drastic overhaul in this profession. That's no doubt. To illustrate how horrible this profession is, I'm going to use the story of a young lady who was an English 1 teacher. Now myself, I will say, in my 15 years of teaching, I taught for 8 school districts. The last school district I worked in was Tatum ISD in Tatum, Texas. I was an Algebra 1 teacher at Tatum High School. Now, when I took this job, and later on when I'm really getting into the different districts I worked for, you'll learn that the first few months at Tatum truly did suck. Fortunately, my principal, him and I started that same year, he was really good. He'd been in the profession for over 20 years, was an actual classroom teacher and coach before becoming an administrator, and he was by far, actually he was the only really good principal I ever worked for in my entire 15-year career. So that is part of what my salvation was. Tatum, for those 2 years, was the best school district I had worked for. Now, the funny thing with public school districts, comparing school districts is like comparing skunks, because even the least stinky, the least smelly skunk in the Sylphette is still a skunk, and all skunks stink. Same is true for public school systems. Every public school system sucks. At least having worked in 8 of them, I feel qualified and entitled to have that opinion, because everywhere I worked ultimately sucked. Now, in my 3rd year at Tatum, we got a brand new first-year inexperienced principal that came in, just a weak, inexperienced principal. He had hired a brand new English 1 teacher. I taught Algebra 1. This girl taught English 1. We taught freshmen, which is the hardest group to teach. And Algebra 1, English 1 are state-tested subjects. So we're placed under a whole lot more scrutiny than any other teacher is just to get good results on that state test. Now, and she was our English 1 teacher, and she come in brand new, right out of college. She was all excited, bright-eyed, had high hopes, knew that she was going to be able to create engaging lessons for her students, knew that she was going to be able to inspire them, going to get great results out of these kids. And in pretty short order, she realized this is public education. The vast majority of these kids really don't care. Now, I don't blame them. I was the same way back when I was in public school. I did the minimum. Teacher, just let me pass and get on with my life. But she wanted more. So she had a whole bunch of her students were failing. She had high standards for them and expected to hold them to those high standards, and they just either couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. So she started getting frustrated. It's typical teacher story. Started getting frustrated, and somewhere along the way, 1st, 2nd, 3rd year, I don't know when, but somewhere along the way, she started taking antidepressants and seeing a therapist just to survive. She was miserable, getting beat down. And it was so sad. It was so sad to watch her go from this young, enthusiastic, bright-eyed teacher to just getting beat down by this horrible system. Sadly for her, in her 3rd year, the district hired a brand new head football coach. That is ridiculous. They're paying this man $90,000 to do nothing but coach a varsity football team. That's twice what the average teacher makes in the district. And as an added bonus, they created a brand new administrative position, called it the Dean of Students, and hired the football coach's wife to fill this brand new Dean of Students position that had virtually no responsibility attached to it. Paid her $73,000, $20,000, $25,000 more than the average teacher. And this woman, all she did all day long was give fourth grade reading tests to high school students. And she was also a pain in mine and the English teacher's ass, because that's all she had time to do was get on us. Now, me, being an older guy and a retired military veteran and all that, she didn't bother me much. I mean, I was disgusted and repulsed by her because she was so stupid and too stupid to know to get out of her own way. But the poor little English teacher, she's just trying her best. And this woman's in there nitpicking and criticizing, thinking she's helping, thinking she's going to help the English teacher become a better teacher, and just driving the poor girl insane. Sadly, during that same year, there was a little punk. She had this punk kid who one day decided to vandalize her classroom and destroy her personal property. He did it during class with her in there. And he did this while other kids actually recorded this punk destroying her personal property. You would think the kid would be kicked out of school forever. No, Not in today's public schools. What all the principal did was send the boy to in-school suspension for 3 days. That's all the principal was going to do. Send him to in-school suspension for 3 days and then bring this little shit right back into the school. Well, the English teacher was at least smart enough to call the Texas Classroom Teachers Association. The TCTA advised her, fill out this form, and when you fill out this form, the principal will not be able to put this kid back into your classroom. So that's what she did. Well, by this point, she had had enough. She had worked for ineffective leadership, had no support, and the principal on this particular occasion, she had never felt so betrayed. She told me that herself. Never felt so betrayed by people that were supposed to be taking care of her. So she submitted her letter of resignation and was gone before the end of the school year. And this is so typical of public education in America. This girl has spent 6 years becoming a teacher, even picked up her master's in education along the way, and only didn't even survive 3 years in public education. And this was in one of the better school districts you're going to find. By this point, you're probably saying, well, Marvin, how the heck did you manage to last 15 years in this profession? The short, easy answer is just sheer will and determination. These losers, these asshole administrators, these people were not going to beat me down. They were not going to win. Okay? I was bound and determined to make it. Now, in my case, it was easier because having been a military veteran and worked in much more arduous conditions than the school, I could handle it. Plus, I was older. And plus, to a certain extent, I was kind of stuck too. Because after retiring from the military and becoming a teacher at my age, in my 40s by this point, I wasn't interested or willing to quit teaching and go start over doing something else. So I just hung in there and did the best I could. Fortunately for me, I was an outstanding math teacher, one of the best math teachers in the state. But ultimately, I just got disgusted, fed up with working for ineffective leadership, watching districts waste money. I mean, imagine, go back to that football coach and his bimbo wife. They're paying these people $163,000 to do what? And then teachers are trying to make it on $40,000, $50,000, if that. Anyway, so I just went ahead and bought 5 years of service credit, best money I ever spent. Bought 5 years of service credit and went ahead and retired. So they didn't win. They didn't beat me. I didn't quit. I retired, and thank God I did. But this takes me back to my very first video. There is no way. I would not recommend anybody get into this profession. I just couldn't, in good faith, encourage anybody to enter this profession. It needs a serious overhaul. It's broken and needs to be fixed. Well, got a little more emotional than I typically do on my videos. So if you're watching the videos and enjoying them, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and until next time, bye-bye.